October marks the beginning of Breast Cancer Awareness Month across Australia, but we're going to be highlighting an often less discussed form of cancer today.
Ovarian cancer is the 10th most commonly diagnosed cancer among young women in Australia. Here to talk more about it is Professor Clare Scott from the Walter and Eliza Hall Institute of Medical Research, and Jackie Polonsky, who is here to tell her story with ovarian cancer. Welcome this Saturday morning to both of you. And Professor, I'd like to start with you and tell us a little bit more about ovarian cancer and how it affects women.
Thank you. This is really important for women in Australia. 1,500 women will be diagnosed this year, and unfortunately 1,000 women will die with ovarian cancer each year in Australia. And unlike with breast cancer, 5-year survival is under 50%, whereas with everything we've done with breast cancer, 90% of women have a 5-year survival with breast cancer. And there are a whole range of reasons for this, one of which is that it's really hard to diagnose ovarian cancer at a stage at which it can be cured. Also, we don't have good enough treatments for ovarian cancer, and that's a really good news story today.
All right, we'll talk about that good news story shortly, Professor, and also the symptoms, because they can be quite common. But let's go to you first, Jackie, and can you tell us a bit about your story?
I was diagnosed with ovarian cancer in 2014. I'd been very well. I hadn't had any of the usual symptoms. I was on holiday and then realised something wasn't quite right, got home and had a blood test, had a fabulous doctor blood test. She sent me straight off to a gynaecologist to have some ultrasounds. It took a while to diagnose. I eventually had a CAT scan and that showed that there was something going on, and then within 10 days I think I was in hospital having a hysterectomy and then starting my my journey and my treatment.
How are you now?
To deal with the ovarian cancer. I'm fine now. I'm all clear. Touch wood, touch everything, for the last, well, it's almost 5 years. So I've been very, very, very lucky. I've been one of the fortunate ones, and I'm well aware of that.
Thank God for that.
That is good. And when you, Jackie, talk about the pain, because we'll get to the symptoms in a moment, Professor, but you did mention that you had a pain. Would you have said that it was like an extreme pain or something that you may have felt before that wasn't as bad as what you'd expect? I mean, I hope you don't mind being graphic, but it was actually because I had trouble passing a bowel motion. That was my first symptom. And I thought maybe I was on holidays and, you know, it's just one of those things, a little constipated, whatever, getting used to a new environment. But it persisted and I thought and it was different. And I thought, no, this isn't right. It really isn't right. This feels there's something wrong. And that's why as soon as we got home I had it investigated, because I knew it wasn't something I'd felt before. And I think that's important for women. If something isn't right, pursue it. And if someone fobs you off, go to another doctor, because you know your body, and if it doesn't feel right, there's usually a reason.
Yeah, and I don't think you ever need to apologise about being graphic. I think in this space, do you, Professor? This is men and women, because, you know, you need to have the conversation regardless of its sensitivity so things can be diagnosed. And it is, Professor, an exciting day today because of this new treatment. Tell us more about it.
So if we just go back one step, so women with ovarian cancer are treated with a combination of surgery and chemotherapy. We have 2 very good drugs, and all women with ovarian cancer receive those chemotherapy drugs. And what we're talking about today is a drug treatment called a PARP inhibitor, which is then given as a follow-on after the chemotherapy drugs. And it's given to women who have a special type of ovarian cancer. We call it BRCA cancer, or BRCA1 and 2 ovarian cancer. It accounts for 1/5 or 20% of ovarian cancer, made famous by Angelina Jolie. So this type of ovarian cancer has a defect in DNA repair, and the PARP inhibitor makes that DNA repair even worse, and it inhibits DNA repair. And so these women take a tablet 8 weeks after their chemotherapy finishes, and on a trial we ran internationally, at 3 years after taking that tablet, 60% of women taking the tablet were still responding to that tablet, whereas on the trial, the women taking the lookalike drug, only 28% of women were still responding or taking that lookalike sugar pill, if you like. So that's a really big difference, 60% versus 28%. So clearly that tablet was doing something. So this is really exciting because in the first line, these women were not having to wait for their cancer to come back in order to get access to more chemotherapy and then access to that very special PARP inhibitor drug. So now in Australia, the TGA has approved access for women in the first line to be able to take this PARP inhibitor drug. So I'd like to now just look at the philosophy of being able to access treatment, special treatment, in the first line. So we know if you can treat women or men with a cancer with special drugs in the first line setting before a cancer has recurred, this is when we have a chance of curing cancer across all cancer types. If you can treat cancers in the first line, you have a chance of curing them. That's something we've known about for decades. But if you have to wait for a cancer to come back, if a cancer recurs, we can't cure it. That's a really big difference.
So a strong message to viewers and Professor would be early detection. And as we mentioned before, you just have common symptoms with ovarian cancer, and if not caught soon enough, then it's in that dangerous zone. What can you advise our viewers? Because, I mean, I had a chat yesterday when I was looking at this research with my sister-in-law, and I said, you know what? I actually got off the phone with her and I rang my doctor and I booked in an appointment for a mammogram and also a ovarian test. I thought, rather than just sit here, I'm going to do it. I'm going to be accountable. And I said to my sister-in-law, you know, she agreed. And so we said, right, by the end of the week, we're going to have this done, rather than just, you know, looking and researching. How do we actually get people to do that? Because there's a lot of fear beside, you know, around going to get that test, the fear of what would happen. But you don't want to get to that. You want to get to the doctor and actually have the test.
So you're absolutely right about having a mammogram for breast cancer if you're over the age of 50. And also over the age of 50, it's really important to talk to your doctor about having screening for bowel cancer. But unfortunately, there's no screening if you are well for ovarian cancer. The screening has not been proven to work for ovarian cancer. What's really important for ovarian cancer is to sort out any symptoms you might have. And as you've said, and as Jackie said, the symptoms for ovarian cancer are really difficult to sort out because they're very common symptoms. They're symptoms of feeling full or having abnormal bowel actions or feeling like the waterworks aren't working and feeling full early when you eat. So what's really important with symptoms is to persist in seeing your doctor if you have symptoms, or to get a second opinion from another doctor. And what I say is if your symptoms persist in seeing a doctor and ask for the special ovarian cancer blood test called a CA125 or an internal vaginal ultrasound. So those are the tests, but they are tests for symptoms, not tests if you are perfectly well. We need to develop better tests, and the way to do that is to back research for ovarian cancer.
Yeah, a great message. And Jackie, just finally with you, look, we're very, very happy having you on the show today, and even happier the fact that you've been clear for 5 years. But when someone gets cancer like you, it's challenging, it's difficult, it's hard in so many ways mentally. What's your message to young people today that are facing, or anyone who's facing the battle that you've had?
Look, I think it's all a very personal journey. For me, it was about staying positive. I was very lucky. I have a wonderful family and friends around me. And I was very open about my diagnosis, and I wanted my children and my husband and all our friends to know about it because they need support as well. And I think that's really, really important to have the people around you supported. So I was very open about it because I want women to talk about it. I want this message to get through so that people don't have to go through what I've gone through and can be, you know, on guard about what's happening with their bodies. But for me, it's about staying as positive as I can. We're very lucky in this country. The treatment I received has been fantastic. And it's just getting on with life and enjoying it till the fullest, and don't waste a minute, and just staying positive. Because if I was happy and okay, then everyone around me was the same, and it's just an easier, for me anyway, an easier way of getting through things. And just being as normal as possible and keeping as fit as possible too. I think that's really important. getting out and keeping up with your exercise. Don't sort of curl into a little ball and don't go out of your house. I mean, I don't think that's particularly helpful, but it really is important to keep your exercise and all the normal things that you were doing, keep doing.
Yeah.
And get as much joy out of life as you can, because none of us knows how long we have.
Oh, exactly.
That's exactly, yeah. Well, thank you for sharing your journey, Jackie Polonsky, and Professor Clare Scott. Thank you for your expertise this morning.
Pleasure. Thanks for your interest.